Hi everyone, welcome back. I'm Surya. In the last video, we talked about the zero conditional, which we use for facts that are always true. But what about things that might happen in the future? For example, if the weather is fine, I'll go for a walk. Or, if it rains tomorrow, I'll stay at home. They are not facts, they are real possibilities. And to talk about them, we use the first conditional. So, how do we actually use this? Let me show you. We use the first conditional to talk about a specific real situation in the future and its likely result. It's used for things that are possible or probable if a certain condition is met. In other words, we imagine a situation that could really happen and we describe the possible result. For example, we often use it to make a prediction, like, if the weather is nice, I'll go for a walk. We can also use it for a promise or warning, such as, if you finish your homework, I'll let you play games. And sometimes we use it for a future plan or decision, like, if I have time, I'll call you. So the key idea is that the situation is real, and the result will probably happen in the future. The main difference from the zero conditional is that this one is not a 100% guarantee. It talks about a likely outcome based on a condition. In short, we are imagining a future scenario. Now let's look at the structure of the first conditional. We use the first conditional for real and likely future situations, things that might actually happen if a certain condition is met. It has two parts, just like the zero conditional, but the tenses are different. The structure is simple. If plus present simple, will plus base verb. We use the if clause to talk about the condition, the situation that might happen, and the main clause to show the result. What will happen if the condition is true? Let's look at some examples. If it rains, I'll stay at home. If I see John, I'll tell him the news. If her flight is delayed, she'll be late. In all these examples, the part beginning with if shows the condition, and this is highlighted in green. And the other part shows the result, which is highlighted in turquoise. You can also change the word order. When the if clause comes first, use a comma between the two parts. For example, if it rains, I'll stay at home. But when the if clause comes second, you don't need a comma. I'll stay at home if it rains. So remember, the meaning doesn't change, but the punctuation does, depending on where the if clause appears. Now let's look at some common mistakes learners often make with the first conditional. The first mistake is using will in the if clause. For example, some learners say, if she will call, I'll answer the phone. That's incorrect because the if clause shows the condition and uses the present simple. We use will only in the main clause. So the correct sentence is, if she calls, I'll answer the phone. The next mistake is similar, forgetting will in the main clause. That is, using the present simple in the main clause instead of will. For example, if I have time this weekend, I visit my parents. That's incorrect. This sounds like a general habit or a zero conditional fact. But if you are talking about a specific future plan, you need will to show that future consequence. So it must be, if I have time this weekend, I'll visit my parents. Remember that you can also make your English more precise by using other modal verbs in the main clause. For example, if you come early, we can start on time. Or, if you come early, we might finish sooner. Both are correct, and the meaning changes slightly depending on the modal verb you use. This gives you a lot more flexibility to express exactly what you mean. And here is one more tip. You can also use unless, which means if not. For example, I won't go unless you come with me. This means the same as I won't go if you don't come with me. So remember, in the first conditional, the if clause takes the present simple, and the main clause uses will or another modal verb like can or might. Now it's time to practice what you have learned. Read each pair of sentences carefully and choose the one that's correct. Remember, in the first conditional, the if clause takes the present simple, and the main clause uses will or another modal verb like can or might. Pause the video and identify the correct sentences. Then resume the video to check your answers. Let's check your answers. All the correct sentences are highlighted in green. As you can see, in all the correct sentences, the if clause uses the present simple, and the main clause uses will or another modal verb like can or might. This pattern stays the same in every example, no matter what the situation is. If you got most of them right, well done. If not, go back and listen again to the explanation in the video before moving on. In the next part, we will see how to make first conditional sentences negative and interrogative and how to use them in real-life situations. Now let's look at how to make first conditional sentences negative and interrogative. Let's start with the negative form. We make the first conditional negative by adding not after will or after the modal verb in the main clause. The if clause stays in the present simple. For example, if it rains, we won't go out. If it rains, we can't play football outside. If it's too late, we might not go out for dinner. So remember, the negative is made in the main clause, not in the if clause. Now let's see how to form questions. To make a first conditional question, we move will or another modal verb before the subject in the main clause. The if clause still uses the present simple. It doesn't change. For example, if it rains, will we stay at home? If you see her, will you tell her the news? If he studies hard, might he pass the exam? So, the rule is simple. Only the main clause changes word order when we ask a question. The if clause always stays the same. Let's quickly review what we have learned about the first conditional. First, it's used to talk about real and likely situations in the future. Things that can really happen if a certain condition is met. The structure is simple. In the if clause, we use the present simple, and in the main clause, we use will, can, may, or might, followed by the base verb. You can use can, may, or might instead of will in the main clause to show different meanings. For example, possibility or permission. Remember, the if clause never uses will. That's one of the most common mistakes learners make. For the negative form, we add not after will or after the modal verb. For example, if you follow the map, you won't get lost. And for the question form, we simply move will or the modal verb before the subject in the main clause. For example, if you invite them, will they come? So those are the key things to remember about the first conditional. That's all for today's lesson on the first conditional. We have looked at its meaning, structure, common mistakes, and how to form negatives and questions. Please like, share, and subscribe to the channel for more lessons like this. In the next video, we will move on to the second conditional, where we will talk about unreal or imaginary situations. Thanks for watching, and see you in the next video.